Welcome back to Big Mouth and welcome to my full spoiler review of Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut. Wow, I am beat. I am tired. I've only watched it once, so I think some of you will say, shouldn't you watch it a few more times before you do this review? Are you going to have everything in your head? No. My head's all over the place with this movie, but we will try our best to kind of remember this film. I'm not really someone who kind of keeps things in his head for very long. This film is a film that you cannot judge or review in the same terms, in the same logic, with the same logic as you would any other film. This is a film where certain scenes have been seen in another director's film before, so it's all very, very difficult. But watching this film, I kind of think about Kevin Sugihara and Jeff Johns and wondering what their problem was and why they wanted someone else to come in and make it lighter, make it smilier, make it funnier, when this film has so much empathy, so much compassion, so much levity. It's got everything that you would want from a modern day superhero film. Now, for me, smiling and jokes and humour are not very important. They're not important at all. You don't have to have them. Going into this film, I thought we were going to see a really dark Justice League movie. I really believed that. And at times in this film, you do get that sense. But you also see a lot of levity. Levity meaning jokes, right, and humour. I mean, I think my favourite gag from the whole film is when Barry's saving Iris and he takes the hot dog, puts it in his pocket, and then he's feeding the dogs with it, which I think gets him the job. Because when he first comes in for that interview, he's late and she's not very impressed with him. I think that's my favourite gag. The VFX for the save of Iris West from Barry Allen is fantastic. But the music, I don't know the song. I'm not sure who did that song, but it's so good. Very few directors would be brave enough to slow-mo something so vital in the story of Barry Allen, because Iris West is the most important character in his life, apart from his mother and his father. It's interesting to me, there's no Joe West, there's no Central City PD or whatever they call it. So he meets her for the first time, which is interesting to me, which kind of strays away from the Flash comics that I've read, and maybe there's other iterations. So that's interesting. Zack creates kind of an origin for Barry Allen and Iris West. That's the only time you see her, because Barry's going to be a little bit busy. And so I really like that whole sequence. It's really interesting with Barry Allen. He's still used kind of as a comedy element. But in this film, there's a balance. He can be very serious, very intelligent when it comes to his tech, but he can also crack a joke, and he's really funny. Again, it's interesting to me why Joss Whedon decided to double down on that humour and make him even more. Well, he wasn't funny. The jokes weren't funny, but he went for the jokey angle even more. So he cuts Zack's humour out from The Flash and puts his own cringe fest of humour in. And it simply didn't work. I still remember him kind of speeding around the Batcave, and it was just mad, wasn't it? And when he's sitting in the Batmobile and all of that in Justice League. One of the things that shocked me to my core about this film is what scenes actually were Zack Snyder's in Justice League and which weren't. There's a lot of scenes that Whedon didn't really cut from Zack and just used Zack's material. Again, that's very surprising. It's quite surprising how much from Zack was actually in Justice League. And it's as shocking how much they cut out. A lot of the stuff they cut from Zack was to do with tone, colour palettes. There's some scenes that clearly Whedon reshot when they're literally the same shots. It's like when Bruce Wayne meets Arthur Curry. Pretty much same conversation, same conclusion, but Zack's colour palettes are just darker. Ridiculous, right? And, Zack's version of the scene is a lot better. And so, again, very, very interesting that the end fight, you get a lot of the stuff from Superman that you get in Justice League. But obviously, in Justice League, Supes has got the blue and red suit. And in this film, he's got the black suit. Also very interesting when Superman goes back, or Clark goes back to the spaceship to get his costume. And you hear all this dialogue from Jor-El. I think nobody kind of thought Russell Crowe would have any part to play in this movie. I'm glad that he did. Personally, I would have wanted Perry White to have a little cameo in this film. Not a big deal. I just loved him in Man of Steel and BVS. I think he's a great Perry White, and I would have liked to see him. But again, that's Zack's decision, his film. We did fight for his vision, so that's fair enough. But this film takes death really, really seriously, and I like that. You know, the opening sequence of this film, and I kind of mentioned it in one of my chapter reactions yesterday, is that death is taken very seriously, but the consequences of Superman's scream as he and Doomsday kill each other is so captivating and compelling. How we go through that voice visually and see all the people that can hear it. Mira, for example. So, you know, the Amazonians. Amazing. So Atlantis can hear this scream. The Amazons can hear this scream. And so it's really, really amazing, really, the consequences of that scream. And of course, ultimately, that scream wakes up the mother boxes. So Superman has a vital component, even when he's not in the film. He's spoken about. One of the things is Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne talking about the promise that he made. And I liked that as well. I think that Superman's pretty much as much in this film as he is in Justice League. Maybe there's a few extra bits and pieces. I think it's pretty much the same amount of time. But again, it was never about the amount of time Superman's in Justice League. It's kind of what he does in Zack Snyder's Justice League compared to Justice League. And I think Superman is really, really awesome. I was waiting to see who was responsible for Cyborg and Superman laying on the ground giggling. I was hoping it wasn't Zack. I don't know how I would have reacted to that, but it wasn't. Thankfully, it wasn't. We didn't get that. We get the Superman bit when he needs Superman's help to split the mother boxes. So let's talk about Ray Fisher's Cyborg, because I think that's a very important part of the film. What he is, as Zack always said, is the heart of the movie. And that's absolutely spot on. Purposely, this character is the central point of this movie. He's the emotion. He's the energy. One of the most fabulous things about Ray Fisher's performance is how he keeps that cyborg element, that serious element, that I've got all this information running through me and it's affecting me. Like the way he does it, I can't even reenact it. It's so good. But when he talks, it's like that's the thing. When he talks, he just looks like he's in pain constantly because of what's going through him and the information and everything that he can do. The moment when he sees the woman who's got no money and she's living in a room on her own, and she, you know, the landlord has changed the key and she's got nothing. And with his power, he gives her a bunch of money through her bank account. I think that's an amazing moment. I think the moment that exemplifies what Zack's doing with this character is when his mother's called to the school because he helped this girl cheat, and the mother kind of turns it around on the headmaster or teacher, whoever it is. She needed help, so my son helped her. What are you doing to help her? And I think this is a great angle because she literally turns everything around on the teacher. Now, clearly, what do we say here? Do we think that Victor's right for doing this? So clearly Victor's doing the right thing. He's just trying to help someone who needs help. I don't know how I feel about her saying, you know, well, yeah, he did cheat, but he helped someone. But I think what that sequence is trying to say is that this is a guy who doesn't turn his back when someone needs his help. And we see the great example of that, as I've already said, about the woman struggling to pay her bills. And I think that's a great moment to see he's so messed up. He's really suffering with depression in the early stages of this film. And I love the flashbacks to him being a footballer how it focuses. He can see his mother cheering for him, but that's not enough for him. His team does really well, and he sees the empty seat, and his dad isn't there. Now, this is straight from the comics. This is very similar to his relationship with Silas Stone in the comics. He's never really there for him. He's too busy working. How many fathers and sons can kind of say, yep, or mothers and sons, or mothers and daughters, or anyone say, I'm so busy that I've got no time for my child, and it's killing me, but what can I do? This is my job. This is my career. And it's very interesting. And the performance of Silas Stone is amazing. Look, a lot of people are saying the same thing. Why was this cut out? Why was that cut out? I'll tell you again, I don't think it was cut out because they didn't like elements of what Zack did. It was cut out for time because they just wanted an accurately kind of solid 2 hours. And there's nothing solid about that film, of course. And so what you get here is you see sequences used in Whedon's movie from Zack Snyder. And now I remember seeing these sequences in Zack's film and thinking, oh, get the idea that they were in Whedon's film out of your head. And it kind of takes you out of the movie. The only people you can blame for that, of course, are Sugihara and Whedon and Johns. I said yesterday after one of my chapter reactions that I really wish I never saw Justice League and Zack's beautiful art being put in that piece of shit, because I think I'm going to need quite a few viewings before I get those sequences reminding me of Whedon's movie out of my head. But the clarity and the way they're being used in Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut is so very, very different. And so I think we should look at the characters. So we've spoken about Cyborg, and I think there's so many things you can say about Cyborg. Obviously, there's that moment when he goes inside the mother boxes, and the mother boxes are trying to tempt him with his parents. Basically, imagine being disabled, right? And someone's trying to lure you into their way of thinking, and they're saying, I can make you whole again. I can make you walk again, right? Or you're someone who has got scars from being burnt or something. That's the carrot that you would dangle at someone. So this is being dangled. You don't have to be Cyborg. You don't have to be like this. You can be with your mum and dad, and you can have your full body back again. And I think it's interesting that Snyder doesn't really kind of focus on this too much and doesn't kind of make it look like he's being tempted. Because at this point, what Snyder's trying to tell the audience is he's strong now. He doesn't need to be that other Victor Stone anymore. He's accepted it. He's embraced being part of the Justice League. He wants to be a hero. It's his idea to go into the mother boxes, an idea that Wonder Woman doesn't support. And the relationship between Diana and Victor is very interesting. Like everything in this film, it's expanded upon a lot more. Kind of similar beats to what Whedon did, but again, expanded upon. I think I was very, very interested how Wonder Woman and Diana would be kind of represented in Zack's version of this film. And for the first time in the history of the DC Extended Universe, somebody fucking calls Diana Wonder Woman. Barry Allen calls her Wonder Woman at last. It didn't take Zack too long, right? Patty Jenkins has had 2 movies and we still haven't heard the word Wonder Woman. Well, I think we kind of heard someone say it very lightly, a reporter or something. I don't know anyway. But Barry Allen says, wow, Wonder Woman. So is he calling her a Wonder Woman, or is that her nickname? I'm assuming that's what people are calling her now, because we know what happened. So we should go to the London incident with the children. Is it the Old Bailey? I think it's the Old Bailey where this happens, I think. Anyway, these kids are there with their class, these young girls, and it's basically a siege happens. These children are being held hostage. And I know I did say this, didn't I? And I keep on reminding you of this. Oh, I'm not going to compare it to Justice League, but you have to, right? The siege in Justice League, pretty much using most of the stuff Zack used. I don't know if they reshot them again. But, you know, when you see the hostage taking, the siege of the Old Bailey, in Justice League, you don't really feel anyone's in any danger, apart from Dinah's got to shield them with the bullets. But it's all rather predictable. But when you see this sequence from Zack's point of view, and Zack's directing, he really gives it stakes. It really feels edgy and dangerous. And you really feel that Dinah's up against it a bit. And these guys are going to blow these children up. It really feels like a dangerous sequence. And I absolutely love it. But my big takeaway from this sequence is when Dinah goes to that quiet little girl. And she looks at her and she says, I want to be just like you when I grow up. And Dinah says, you can be anything you want to be. Isn't it funny? All these directors, all these people virtue signaling about female representation and empowerment. Remember Captain Marvel, how Captain Marvel was for little girls and to inspire little girls? Well, I'm sorry, Brie, you don't inspire little girls by going publicly as yourself and saying that men in their 40s are a piece of scum and a piece of shit. What you do is you do what Chris Terrio do and Zack Snyder do here. Two men. Imagine two men and an actress have inspired so many young women, I'm sure, from this sequence. I want to be like you when I grow up. You can be anything you want to be. And it works. And it makes me cry because it doesn't do anything to put down a man or anyone who identifies as anything else down. All it does, it says to this young woman and other young women, you can be whatever you want to be, with a warm smile. And that scene meant so much to me. And isn't it interesting when you're intelligent and you're a compassionate storyteller like Snyder and Terrio, how you can do that? Now, I don't know about young girls being inspired. It certainly inspired the hell out of me. So, an amazing sequence. I think my highlight of this film is the history lesson. It is freaking off the scale. Off the scale. I mean, I've never seen anything quite like this since the opening prologue of Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring. And when you've got the whole kind of narration and the history of the ring, all the rings and how everyone wants to covet them and how greed is a big thing amongst all these different kind of people in Middle-earth. And Snyder does a similar thing. It's so epic. It's so amazing. And it's outstanding. Not outstanding. It kind of defies thinking how much Whedon cut from that. And even in the sense of the Green Lantern, we see the Green Lantern close up in Snyder's version of the history lesson, where Whedon makes sure he just flies really quickly. What's all that about? And what's this shit I'm hearing that they didn't want? Zack wanted to use one of the lanterns, Stewart, isn't it, right? And they said, no, we've got our own plans for Green Lantern. Really pathetic, isn't it? Seeing we're dealing with, and seeing Jim Lee was talking about the multiverse, but I think the multiverse strategy kind of was way after when Zack was making this film originally. So I don't know if this discussion was happening when he went back to do reshoots or when he originally did that. We should obviously kind of not talk until we have that information. But this history lesson is off the scale because we meet Euxus, basically the guy who's going to become Darkseid. The CGI for him is absolutely stunning. And the whole story is here. And I think because we do live in a divided world right now, so to see the humans, the Atlanteans, the Green Lantern Corps, the Amazonians, all these beings, unite together and to defeat Darkseid, to give Darkseid his only defeat he's ever had. And why is it the only defeat he's ever had? Because all these people from different backgrounds, right, and different cultures, united together. We are always stronger together than we are apart. But the world is dividing and conquering itself right now with that on social media. People talk too much, right? Me too. We're all reacting to the negativity. We're being sucked into it all the time. Like the guy who posted that he was an extra on BVS and he was offended by Snyder because Snyder said to him, because Snyder wasn't happy with the way the extras reacted to Superman's death, and he said to them, imagine this is 9/11 and how upset you would have been. And he was offended by that. Do you know what? I've been a director. I've done plays and stuff, and I've been an actor, and directors have said, imagine this, imagine that. Imagine the worst thing that's happened to you. Am I going to be offended of that because I'm going to think of a loved one's death or tragedy or something, right? No. Directors will say stuff to get performances out of their actors. But imagine how hateful you must be. The jealousy and the hate these people have got for Snyder is disgusting. 99.9% of people who have worked with Snyder and experienced his directing have said nothing but the man's a sweetheart. And this one little cretin had to come out just because everyone's happy, because we're happy. There's always there's always one bastard who wants to get you down, but just ignore them. I did respond to him because I thought I was kind of constructive and I made a joke out of it, but, I'm not going to tolerate this kind of thing. This is such a happy time for Zack, Deb, for the fans. It really is a glorious moment, and I felt glorious watching this film, and especially this history lesson. It was so good. And you know what? You just didn't want it to end. But it did go on a bit. It was brilliant. I wish it went on more. But it was amazing visually, emotionally. It really, really worked. As they charged towards Darkseid, it's so awesome. The fighting, the brutality of Darkseid. And it's amazing to me again that in Justice League, they got rid of Darkseid in that history lesson, that mini version of the history lesson, and put in Steppenwolf. Why? Why didn't you want Darkseid in the movie? It doesn't make sense. Did you think people were going to be afraid of him? Were people afraid of Thanos? And I hate comparing the two because they're very different characters. But what was the justification for having no Darkseid in this movie? It is sensational. It's the great achievements, one of the many great achievements of the Snyderverse, of this movie. And I loved it. And I appreciate Zack so much more for doing it. To see Darkseid in this film, and if you haven't seen it yet, really you shouldn't be watching this video, but if you like spoilers, he's not in it loads of times, but I think he's in it enough. What's amazing about this film, this is a 4-hour Justice League film. That's a precursor for more Justice League films. Imagine that. A 4-hour, 3-minute, or whatever it is movie that's actually just the beginning, just the launch pad for this Justice League universe. Man of Steel and BVS were the beginning, but this is the launch pad of the shared Justice League universe. And then we get a great moment between Steppenwolf and Darkseid, and they're talking. And by the way, Steppenwolf was amazing. He looks amazing. He feels amazing. And you know what? You feel cheated for him when he gets his head chopped off by Wonder Woman. You feel, oh my God, he was really trying to prove himself to Darkseid. And ultimately what happens is he gets his head chopped off and literally Darkseid squeezes his head so the lights go out. That's so brutal and tragic. I loved it. So basically, Darkseid and Steppenwolf having this conversation. Now, you see, this is what's going to happen now. I'm going to forget the term that they used. So I'll be back in a minute because I need to remember this. The anti-life equation, you see. I was going to look it up, but it came back in my head. So basically, Steppenwolf is in this field and he gets his axe and his wallop. And then he sees the anti-life equation or the symbol or whatever it is. So this is Steppenwolf's big moment. He's trying to get back in favour with Darkseid because he did something yonks ago to upset the big guy. I don't know what it is. He betrayed him or whatever, right? And basically, Darkseid saying to him, you're going to have to conquer like 50 wells or 100, whatever, until you can get back in favour. So he's got a lot of work to do. But the moment he discovers the anti-life equation, he's thinking, result. This is what, because Darkseid's been searching for this for ages because he can control worlds and beings with this thing. So it's important to him. So, he tells him. And then I think it's Steppenwolf who name drops the multiverse. He actually says the multiverse. Could it be that Zack Snyder was going to deal with the multiverse in his movies as well? It's really interesting and exciting that Darkseid and Steppenwolf have knowledge of the multiverse. They probably have, maybe the anti-life equation can help them travel through the multiverse, different Earths. But maybe they can already do that. And that's interesting to me. One of the things really clear to me about this movie, that this is Elseworld. This is the Snyderverse. This is not the Shazam universe or James Wan's Aquaman universe. This is the Elseworld. Now, this film was shot in 2016 and Zack did like the extra scene in the Nightmare Future. But accidentally, on purpose or whatever, it's like he's purposely made this film in another universe. So Man of Steel and BVS are now part of another Earth. They're not part of the central DCEU. And you can just tell by looking at this film, certain instances, Amber Heard, I mean, she's got a really posh, a really posh accent in this. She speaks like this. And that was a shock. And I thought, well, obviously they were going after something else. But it's really weird, isn't it, that Justice League didn't use the same posh accent and purposely got her to talk in another way. Again, Joss Whedon and Zack Snyder, by having their character talk like this, change things. It divides it. And don't forget, Snyder brought Amber Heard back and she's still got that posh accent in the Nightmare Future. So, very, very interesting. Voco kind of has got a different frame. He's got long hair. Very different to the Voco we saw in Aquaman. This film really sets up the notion that there is a Snyderverse, and even though these characters look the same and they're the same actors, they're not the same versions of the characters we've already seen. Now, of course, we've never seen Cavill. I mean, we've seen Affleck in Suicide Squad, but really, I know that's the butchered Suicide Squad, but Suicide Squad really was part of the Snyderverse. So it's a decision they're going to have to make. And obviously, Leto's Joker is part of the Snyderverse, but is the Leto Joker from Suicide Squad the same Joker as we saw in Zack Snyder's Justice League, Snyder Cut? That's something each of you is going to have to decide for yourself. And so, yes, so Wonder Woman's it's really, really interesting. She's got the gladiator thing again. She's got the shield. She's got the sword. Something a lot of people didn't like her losing in Wonder Woman 84. It made very, very little sense to me. It's the Wonder Woman everybody loves. But when you've got people who swing a certain way politically, they like to make big, profound messages about being peaceful and kind. So I suppose each soldier who has weapons in a war isn't a good soldier. I think this is the problem. You're dealing with politicians rather than good artists. So Snyder's vision for Wonder Woman is better than Patty Jenkins as far as I'm concerned. And it's interesting because we do see the gentle, soft side of Diana. I mean, her and Alfred have got some banter going on with that cup of tea, the tea making. That was just nuts, Keep it stirred in you, put the water in, make sure it can get, and all that. And she's going, oh, I will for sure. I'm sure Diana's thinking, fuck off, you old git. I'm just going to wait till you're not looking and drink my tea how I want to drink it. But Alfred was really funny in this film. And again, they cut so much Jeremy Irons out of Justice League. It's unbelievable. There's nothing there that you would say, best bin this or best bin that. It's all really, really good. So, I mean, Jeremy Irons is an amazing actor. He's a legendary actor. And why would anyone dare to cut so much Jeremy Irons out of any movie, let alone a Justice League movie, when he's playing Alfred? So Alfred is very, very prominent in this film. And yeah, Diana's got an interesting kind of role. She's got this kind of historian kind of role where she's explaining who Darkseid is and, what's going on, because she knows it. Well, she's been around for thousands of years, right? I love the crack by Barry Allen when he goes, I wonder if she goes for younger men. and then like Cyborg. Victor Stone says, look, she's been around for so many thousands of years. I think it's quite a big age difference, whatever he says. Really, really funny stuff. But we also find out that the Flash looks up to Superman, which I love. They didn't really expand on that, but I think that will be interesting in future kind of versions of the Snyderverse. But how do you think Barry's going to feel when he first found out in the Nightmare Future that Superman kind of succumbed to the anti-life equation? That's going to be very interesting as well. And so I like that. I like Barry Allen. It's interesting with Barry Allen. He's funny, but he's not over the top funny. And there's still there's space in the piece of work in his performance to be serious and be the intelligent young man that he is. And when we first meet him, he really wants to prove his father's innocence. They don't really go too much into how Barry's mum died or who killed Barry's mum. Obviously, they weren't sure what they were going to do there, if they were going to go with Reverse Flash. But I think it was Zack's original. They're doing Flashpoint now, but Zack did want to do Flashpoint with his Flash movie, or whoever he was going to get to do the Flash movie in the Snyderverse originally. So I think Flashpoint was always the way to go. I think it's very interesting here, though. I don't know if I've mentioned it in my other videos I did yesterday, reacting to the chapters. What was one of the big complaints about the DC Extended Universe while Snyder was running it? They all need origin movies. This is nonsense. How can you introduce all these superheroes in a team-up? It's ridiculous. Well, Zack Snyder, you did it. You introduced Cyborg, The Flash, Aquaman, right? Did I say Cyborg? Whatever, right? You introduced all these characters. Now, you didn't mess about with... We kind of delve into their origins a little bit. We went into Cyborg's origin a lot deeper than we went into the Flash's or Aquaman's one. Because, for example, they knew they were doing an Aquaman movie. They knew what they wanted to deal with in that film and what they didn't want to deal with in Justice League. But because Victor Stone is so important to Justice League, they needed to delve into his origin a lot more than the other characters. But I think you really got a sense of who these people are without having to tell their full story, but make sure people understand where these characters are coming from. It's a stepping stone movie for these characters. They are not a family yet. These are all kind of people on their own in the world. They've never fitted in before. And so it's kind of really slow. And I like the moment when Arthur Curry says, you know, this guy's just lost his dad, talking about Cyborg, and now, you know, he's going to go into those mother boxes. And he just, for the first time in the film, Arthur says, that's not fair. And Barry says to him, I thought you didn't care. I never said that. But because of the way he acts, he's one of those guys, we all know them, kind of cool, a bit gruff, really sarcastic. You never know where you stand with them. But at that moment, we see who Arthur Curry truly is. Another brilliant element to this film is the kind of thing when Diana discovers that Arthur is an Atlantean. And there's this big history in the comics between Atlanteans and the Amazons. So she says, I don't trust him. And she's saying to him, you know, our people haven't spoken for, you know, so long, and we're the first of our kind. And he goes, well, don't worry, he goes, I don't like Atlanteans either, which I thought was great. And she says something about hate, you know, there's no point in hating, or whatever she said. I love that. There are so many great angles to these characters in this film compared to what Whedon was doing, because all Whedon wanted to do was get through the movie, make it bright, make it funny. There wasn't a vision. He didn't have a vision for what to do. He took Snyder's sequences, used what he could, and then was told. You know, he's a fixer-upper. He's a fixer. In terms of Justice League, it's a fixer's film. He hasn't got a vision. He doesn't really care. All he wants to do is be the fixer. So he comes in and he says, right, drop this, do this. He's basically been given the instructions. Make it funny, make it fun, not too deep, 2 hours, and then we'll move on to the projects that you want to do, and we can reassert the Justice League in the future. But right now, we need to get this movie out there, and we need to reassert this, because as far as they were concerned, they wanted to be in line with what Kevin Feige was doing with the MCU. But this film has so many angles to it. It has grandeur. It has great visuals. There's Darkseid. There's Steppenwolf. There's so many different themes going on. But the angles of the character interaction is so really, really good. And you can see it and it works. And they don't really need that moment to kind of... It's interesting because in the first Avengers, you have, what's his name? The guy who works for S.H.I.E.L.D., right? Yeah. The one who's in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., right? Coulson. They kill him off and then that unites everyone. There's not really that moment. I suppose, and this is a big spoiler if you don't know, Silas Stone dies. He sacrifices himself for the world and for the rest of the league so they can find out where Steppenwolf is. And we don't know that initially. Because initially, Snyder makes it look like that he's trying to destroy the mother box, but Silas knows full well, if you heat the mother boxes up, you make them stronger. And so Silas does this amazing thing. And obviously, it is that moment. I suppose everyone kind of looks at Cyborg and kind of thinks, well, we've got to calm down a bit here. Maybe we need to do this. We need to be taking this a bit more seriously. This guy's just sacrificed himself. And it's amazing. I think the performance from Ray Fisher, I didn't know how good his performance was going to be. Very little experience, but he's good. It's very difficult to do what Ray did in this film. Because as I said, you've got to act like all this information is around you. You have the potential to become an angry, vicious, dictatorial god. If Cyborg wants to, he can be Skeletor. He can be one of the most evilest fuckers in the world. He can dominate the world. He can control your thoughts. He can do anything with his power. So he's controlling all this shit going on around him. And I think the performance, you can tell that in the performance. And it's interesting how Snyder makes his Snyderverse about relationships between fathers and sons. Victor and Silas. Jor-El and Clark. Jonathan and Clark. They're the things. They're the kind of things they used on Smallville, the TV show as well. It really, really works. And then you look at Lois Lane and how better she was used by Snyder rather than Whedon. Because as I say, Whedon's got no love for these characters. He's just there to... Whedon on Justice League is like Steppenwolf. He's just trying to prove his worth so he can get his crummy Batgirl movie, right? That's what it is. He is the Steppenwolf of Hollywood at that time. He's got to prove himself to Lord Sugihara, right? To Sugihara Seed, right? That he's worthy. So he has to make this, he has to destroy a man's art and vision to do that. Like Steppenwolf has to destroy Earth and conquer it. It's a very similar theme. It's interesting, isn't it? What really stunned me about this film is, in a great way, is how different Man of Steel is, how different Batman vs. Superman is to Man of Steel, and how different Batman vs. Superman is to Zack Snyder's Justice League. After all this, after fighting for this film, and being under the impression it was just going to be as dark as BVS, when it's not, Zack gave them the tone that they wanted, but with his own vision, his own expansive vision. And it's sensational. It works. I believe it works for the normies, the mainstream audience, and it works for people like us who may have a greater knowledge of the comics. Because I think they do a great job of explaining via Diana who Darkseid is. They do a good job of explaining who Steppenwolf is. And they even go back to that moment when Lex Luthor is in the Gunge, in the Kryptonian ship, and we can see the image of Steppenwolf. So it's all there. You can't really say, oh, nothing's explained. I suppose it might help a little bit if you know a little bit of the history of Darkseid and Steppenwolf, but it's not vital. They're there. The baddies, we know where they're coming from. And, Darkseid is on a mission himself. And there's another amazing moment, by the way. Is it when Victor's messing with the mother boxes when they're going to bring Superman alive? And he sees this foreshadowing, this flash forward of the nightmare future. We see Diana dead. We see Arthur Curry, dead. And it's amazing. And we see Superman kneeling to Darkseid, succumbing to the anti-life equation. Wow. And the shocking moment in this film, and it's not one of those grandiose moments, is Lois Lane and the pregnancy test. So she's clearly pregnant, which is interesting. Now, can Superman make a human woman pregnant? Could it be that away from, off camera, that something did happen between Bruce Wayne and Lois Lane? Could we still go with that? Amazing. So, as I say, now let me just talk about the chapters as well, because the chapters really helped me. They enabled me to stop, and you don't want to stop, by the way, you want to keep on watching. But I wanted to react to my subscribers here, because I knew I was going to have to watch a 4-hour movie and maybe miss my slot for the ordinary DCEU Daily, so I thought reactions would be kind of fun. I don't think anyone thought that, because not many people have seen them, but I thought I'd do them anyway. Views are not really why we do things around here, because we don't get many anyway. So I did that, but the chapters were so helpful to stop, take a deep breath, let it sink all in and go to the next one. It really was like watching an episode of Game of Thrones, watching another episode. And it was amazing to me how this film sucks you in through its narrative. I mean, I was watching it at a stage where if I do have to make dinner for me and my dad, and I kept on looking on my phone. Oh my God, I've got to do the food. I was just so sucked in that I didn't even know what time it was. So this is a really, really different film. What Snyder's done with this film, he's proven that he can take anything and he can make films for any kind of audience. We had Man of Steel, BVS, a really dark, gritty, kind of indie type superhero movie, right? But then we get Justice League, which at times is very light, plenty of levity. And I think if an ordinary member of the audience who goes to see most films would really appreciate this. Of course, you need to see the other two movies. It really would help to see Man of Steel, and especially BVS, because there's things going on from those movies. Then we come, how could I forget about Martian Manhunter? Now, this is interesting. I suppose one of the kind of shortcomings is, and it's nobody's fault, not the filmmakers, that we know a lot of what was going to happen in this film, like the Martian Manhunter moment. Because that was one of the things Zack used to get people interested in fighting for his movie. And quite right too. So we knew that Martha Kent was actually Martian Manhunter. But what I loved about this sequence, that he comes to Lois for one fact, to inspire her back to the Daily Planet, inspire her back to the living. The world needs you too, Lois. He's formed a bond with Lois via Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman. He cares about Lois as a father would care about a daughter. Now, I don't know where General Sam Lane is. We don't really know about her parentage. It hasn't been mentioned in the Snyderverse, but I thought that was a really great moment. And if we jump right to the end of the movie, we see, now this is a reshoot. You can tell it's a reshoot, and everyone's mentioning it. Ben Affleck has lost a lot of weight since he did Justice League back in 2016. He obviously had his fight with alcoholism. He's lost a lot of weight. For whatever reason, he looks amazing. He looks great. I'm kind of bored of people going on and on about the weight loss. Oh, you can tell because he lost lots of weight. Yeah, unfortunately, you can tell, right? That 1 minute he's kind of all bulky and then he's not. Now, in the Nightmare Future, you can kind of tell a little bit that the suit's slightly a little bit too big for him now, because I think it's the same suit. They didn't have time to make a new suit. Obviously, that makes sense. And I suppose in the Nightmare Future, you could kind of accept, well, maybe he's lost some weight in the Nightmare Future, right? Kind of works. But then he wakes up from I think, is he dreaming again? I don't know. They make it look like he's dreaming. But we know the Nightmare Future is a possible future. So then, I don't know, there's a knock on the door or something, and he meets Martian Manhunter. What a great way to finish this film. Prior to this scene, you finish the Nightmare Future with a cliffhanger. Superman turns up, right? Superman's an evil god. He's succumbed to the anti-life equation. It's amazing. But isn't it great to finish this film on such a high note in terms of inspiring the audience? It was a good ending. Pretty much Martian Manhunter saying, I want to join the Justice League too. I don't think they ever used the words Justice League, but he pretty much saying, I've been here for a long time. It's about time I played my part. So that's brilliant. And Bruce says, well, we could do with all the help we could get. So I love the design for Martian Manhunter, by the way. Slightly different to the CGI in the Supergirl TV show, but just as good nonetheless. And yeah, so I love that little ending. The score is amazing. Not just good. And I'm not just saying this, right? Because I'm in love with Zack's DCEU or because I love the music. I love Zimmer's score for Man of Steel. I love Zimmer's and Junkie XL's Tom Hulkenberg's music for BVS. But I loved Tom's music. This was his chance to get away from the shadow of Hans Zimmer. What a teacher to have, by the way. But this score is sensational. Sensational, my friends. Especially the Justice League theme. I think I mentioned it yesterday, or somewhere I mentioned it. And I said, when I first heard whatever it's called, the War to Warpath, or whatever, I forgot now, right? But at first I was going, I don't know. I'm not sure. It kind of feels inspirational, but I wasn't sure when I first heard it. It's like that when you first hear things sometimes. But when you actually watch the film and they play it in different ways, it is so good. It's kind of Tom's version, kind of in Avengers, they create the Avengers theme, which is really cool. This is like that inspirational theme. It's like John Williams' inspirational theme for Superman is Superman the movie. It's inspirational. And the Justice League theme that Tom does is just as good, if not better. It really helps inspire you and create this inspiring tone. People said that Zack Snyder didn't understand DC Comics, doesn't understand comic books. That's what they said. They were wrong because he did inspire us in this movie. It was amazing. Amazing. And to think that this film is dedicated to autumn, what a dedication. What a dedication. A film where you're dedicating it to your late daughter takes death seriously. As I said earlier on, when the Amazon dies at the hands of Steppenwolf, everyone's so upset. And Queen Hippolyta, a queen who can say, hey, what do I can tread over her body and say, oh, we need to bury her, doesn't do that. She sits with her. You can tell from the performance and the writing and the directing, this is a serious thing. I've lost one of my soldiers, one of my friends, one of my daughters, one of my sisters, right? Because all those women are her daughters to a point, right? They're under her responsibility, and she couldn't keep her safe. And you can see how valuable each life is in this film. And you know what? I love Zack for that. How many superhero films do we see people just dying? I mean, Zack's directed films before where people are just dying, but this film, he decided that each life matters and to make a big deal of a death. And I think the Amazonian's death was the moment you say, wow, they're really taking this death seriously. They're showing the audience that each person's life has value. It doesn't matter if you're rich or famous or poor or whatever. Just like that bit with Cyborg and the poor woman who can't pay her bills. Everyone is relevant. He changes that woman's life. And that's amazing. And this film has so many great moments like that that put joy in your heart, make you smile, make you laugh, like the hot dog moment. These are things people said Zack wasn't capable of. But we've seen the trailer of Army of the Dead. There's gags in that. He's capable of anything. He really is a visionary, all-round director. The Russos have congratulated him. Matt Reeves, wishing him good luck. So many people now are publicly stating their support. Now it's fashionable to do so, of course. We were the ones who stood there. But we didn't do so at any risk to ourselves, our careers or anything. So it's important. Because Zack Snyder, after Batman vs. Superman, was a zero and now he's a hero. Now, I don't think he should be a 0 for Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice. I think he should be lauded as a great visionary director. Each movie from the Snyderverse is sensational. And so we look at the Justice League, and we look at these characters, and I think what he did, the characters that haven't had their own film, kind of had more screen time, more development, because that was important. We saw Batman in a whole movie. Superman, thus far, has already been in Man of Steel, BVS, and now Justice League. Of course, he's not in Justice League a lot. But there was the death of Superman Lives story. So they had to do that. And so I think the way he developed these characters really worked, especially with Cyborg, with the Flash, and to a lesser extent, Arthur Curry. The lesser extent with Arthur Curry is because he was going to get his own movie. But all these characters work on their own merits. I think it's a special film. I'm glad we fought for it. I think it's amazing. I really do. And that end battle was amazing. That moment when the League are looking at Darkseid and Desaad. Excuse me, I've been talking literally for nearly 52 minutes, so this was always going to happen, wasn't it? But at that moment when the League are looking at Desaad and Darkseid is amazing. And then Darkseid shuts the kind of window or whatever you want to call it. And there's a great moment, actually. Desaad goes, I told you Steppenwolf was useless, whatever he says. And he looks at Desaad, and I think he's going to waste the fucker now. And he goes to him, yes, I know you did. And it was like, I thought he was actually going to kill him. I love Desaad. I thought Desaad was great, and I thought Darkseid was represented so well. Darkseid is this epic villain that everyone loves seeing, whether it's in the comics, in animation, or live action. People look forward to seeing Darkseid. He is the daddy of fucking villains. He's a fucking scary dude. You don't know what he's going to do next. And there's a lot going on there. What do I think of Ray Porter's performance? I think it's sensational. What do I think of Kieran Hines' performance as Steppenwolf? I think it's sensational. I really loved the voice acting. I thought it was amazing. So much love and effort was put into this film. We get the narration in the end, not by Lois, but by Silas Stone. And it works. And it's brilliant. So let's go to the end of the film, in the nightmare future. It looks great. It's amazing. I think if Zack had another 6 months, he really would have worked a little bit longer on the VFX. Let's talk about the VFX, actually. People have mentioned a couple of ropey moments. They had to rush the amount of time they had to work on the VFX because HBO Max wanted to release this film now, in March. Not 6 months, not in the summer. They wouldn't wait. They wanted it because they needed it to kind of create a buzz about this streaming service. So Zack didn't have anything to play with then. So they had so many special effects shots. They were doing it in a rush. And considering the VFX was done in such a rush, it was sensational. Of course, there's a couple of things. There's going to be when you're in a rush. But 99.9% of the VFX is stunning. And the other bits are still awesome. But if Zack had a little bit more time, he would have perfected everything. And I suspect before we get the Blu-ray, he'll go back and work on a few of that as well. And of course, we've got Justice is Great coming out as well. That's exciting. So, the nightmare future. Wow. Kind of wish I didn't know this was going to happen, so it could be a surprise. But it was brilliant. The dialogue between Batman and Joker was sensational. Leto's acting when he turns to him and says, why did you send the boy Wonder to do a man's job? Or something like that. Imagine how twisted this guy is. He knows what he took from Bruce. And he likes what he took from Bruce. I still think he's Jason Todd. And he killed Dick out of jealousy. But that still hasn't been revealed. That's a lot of people's theories, by the way, and it's mine as well. I think it makes sense. I'm sure someone in the comments down below will tell me that makes no sense whatsoever. But the exchange is brilliant. And I love when Bruce says to him, I am going to fucking kill you. I love that. It's like, I fucking hate you, but I need you and I have to work with you. And we see Deathstroke. We don't see much of him, but him and Batman are talking. We see Cyborg and we see the Flash. I don't remember the Flash saying anything in the Nightmare Future. But as I say, this is all foreshadowing. The next film literally was going to be based in that whole Nightmare Future. The setup's there. Why did Zack Snyder bring people back to shoot in the Nightmare Future? Well, because that was his great moment to tease the audience about what he has planned. Because he can use the audience to send a message to HBO Max. They want more. Zack's always thinking ahead. But that's the moment a lot of people are talking about. The nightmare sequence. I loved seeing Amber Heard there, and it's very interesting what Warner Brothers are thinking about her right now. There's more things being accused from Johnny Depp's accusing her of more things, like lying about what she did with the divorce settlement. I don't really care. People lie. People do shitty things. I'm not that passionate about having her replaced because she's there. Leave her. If you have to replace her, you have to replace her. It's also not the end of the world. But I do like consistency with actors, and I don't like recasts. I really don't. Like Barry's father being recast. He did a really good job, didn't he? The relationship was great. When he's so excited that Barry's got his job, something else than Whedon cut out. So we go back to the Nightmare Future, and Jared Leto is really playing this Shakespearean stuff so brilliantly. And he's finding the whole scenario so entertaining. And the music, he name drops Lois. Poor Lois, he says. But he doesn't go as far as to explain to us if anything's happened between Bruce and Lois. I think that it has. Now, when that's happened, I don't know. But it's great. It's a great moment. I thought it would end there because Zack talked about it finishing on a cliffhanger. But Zack gave us a nice surprise with Martian Manhunter and Bruce Wayne. I thought that was brilliant. It left a really high note to finish the film on. And if you're a normie, you've got that scene prior in the Nightmare Future with Superman turning up, and that bit's awesome. That's the cliffhanger. That's where the film will continue from. But then we've got this moment of clarity and inspiration. Basically, Martian Manhunter's going to join the Justice League, and that's amazing. This film, as I said at the beginning, cannot be judged like other films are judged. It's just an amazing piece of work. If I carried on talking to you, I could be here for 2-3 hours. But I'm not going to do that because there'll be many more times in the coming days that we can talk more about this film. I really enjoyed this film. It was unique. It was a different way to do a Justice League movie. It was a different way to set up this franchise and these characters. And it's a shame they put a stop to it. Well, now we're going Elseworlds and multiverses, which is exciting. But we could have had Zack Snyder driving the course of this whole franchise. And look at everyone now. They loved his Justice League movie after everything everybody said. 7 out of 10 people loved it. The film's got 77-78% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes. 97% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. It is sensational. I loved this film. I enjoyed the experience of watching this film. You want more? I want more. We want to restore the Snyderverse. Well, come here. Shall I tell you a little secret? On the 18th of March, the Snyderverse was restored. Comment down below, like, share and subscribe, and I'll be back tomorrow with more videos. See you again soon. There's so much more to talk about with this film. And I know I've missed stuff out, and I went on deep levels talking about other stuff, but it's a 4-hour movie. So I will continue this conversation tomorrow. See you again soon.